Hello, everyone, and welcome to another lockdown interview. I'm delighted to be joined by the team owner of Hagens Berman Axeon, Axel Merckx. Axel is the son of the great Eddy Merckx, and Axel has forged probably the best under 23 team in the world, with many of his alumni taking up the world tour today or have been part of the world tour. Axel himself is also a former professional rider, and he achieved multiple notable results, such as several top finishes in the monument classics of Il Lombardia and Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Axel won the Belgian National Road Race Championships and a Giro d'Italia stage win in 2000. He also won a bronze medal for Belgium in the 2004 Olympics in Athens. So lots to discuss. So without further ado, here is the interview with Axel Merckx. How are you? Thank you for joining me here on this lockdown interview.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Where are you, and how's the lockdown affected you?
Well, I'm here in British Columbia in Canada because that's where I live, and been here for a while, I guess now since my last trip was well, I guess training camp for us, which was in the end of January, and but since then, like we did some races in Europe, but I didn't go. Our director in Europe did it, Koos Moornout, and I haven't moved, so just still waiting for us to start moving around, I guess.
How have your goals kind of shifted for the revised calendar? Have you made up like what your race calendar is going to look like, or is it still like to be confirmed?
Well, we still haven't heard really exactly what the calendar is going to look like for us. Yes, we've seen the World Tour calendar, but that's obviously not for us. We're supposed to get it in the next few days, and then we can reassess and try to make a decent calendar out of it or a schedule for the riders. Obviously, it's going to be very condensed, very busy around a short amount of period. Hopefully, we'll be able to get to it because, as this lockdown is it's full of question marks, and if something that we've all learned out of this lockdown and the pandemic is that expect the unexpected. One day you can be traveling around the world, and then the next 3 months you'll be stuck not going anywhere, and anticipating and hoping that things will change for everybody.
So your team's quite unique, as in you're American team, but you race in Europe and you're under 23, so you kind of have different race calendars. It seems. How do you balance that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's not always easy. Also, we work with national federations because, as you know, like the U23s, we still have Nations Cup, and that's only with national teams. So we try to have good relationship with any national team that we have riders from, and try to make an ideal program for those riders in order to get the best scene out there, and the best benchmark, so they can first get better, and also kind of prove the talent to everybody out there. Like, for example, Tour of Flanders and Nations Cup, and that's the national teams. Well, if you're able to perform there and do a good race, I'm not going to hold you back and not letting you do it. At the same time, I think our calendar is very complementary to that calendar. And then you have US interest also, where like we have a lot of US sponsors, and our main sponsor, Hagens Berman, is from the US, so it's normal that we represent the color as much as we can in the US. That's been a bit of a struggle lately because not only for the lockdown, but racing in the US is a little bit on the downhill, and there's lots of more and more races that got canceled due to financial trouble and stuff like that. So, but whatever like races are still around, we try to support and to try to be there and be part of the years to come.
How do you think, yeah, with Amgen Tour of California going into a hiatus, how do you think you would kind of reignite the passion of cycling into the US?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, Tour California, it's a huge event for sure in the spring. It brought a lot of big names to the US, a lot of cycling. Um, it's been very, very important for us as a team because we have a lot of riders that made their breakthrough ride through in the Amgen Tour of California, and we were very happy and lucky that we would be able to be part of it. This year, regardless, we were not going to be part of it because we moved down from Pro Conti to Conti, so that was not going to be possible. But like this, those are financial issues that we couldn't really overcome in order to be there. But then at the same time, Tour California is one race. It would be nice to have several races. It's just, I feel there's a bit of a void right now and a bit of a gap between the mass participation events and like the racing events. Now there's gravel rides also. So I think people are a little bit spread out towards all different kind of events, and road cycling and road racing is a little bit, like in a foggy situation, I would say, in the US.
So you mentioned that you're pro continental last year. What was the decision for going pro continental, and what was it like being a continental team compared to a continental team, pro continental to continental?
Yeah, well, the main thing for us to become pro Conti was a request from our title sponsor, Hagens Berman, because he wanted us to be part of Tour California. It's a huge financial investment that he made himself. So it was just natural for us to respect that and to do everything we could. I think there's pros and cons for it. I mean, the big pros for the riders is there's a minimum salary. So everybody had the same minimum salary for U23, which was a really nice salary. Another thing is, like, everybody was on a biological passport, so it kind of made the transition to the World Tour level smoother, as they had data already, and they could see exactly what blood values, or if there was anything out of the ordinary on every rider. The downfall is that, like, it was hard for us to be able to do the bigger races all the time. But I think we found a good balance between it. And I mean, I enjoyed being pro Conti for sure. It's a lot of work. It's a lot more work for the management also, and try to get all the paperwork, the bank guarantee, and it's a lot more money required to be able to do those races. As a continental team, your cost is way down. You're a little bit more flexible, but then you're also limited to the amount of races that you can do, and big races you're about to do. They had the Pro Series this year, so I mean, unfortunately, I can't comment on that because we weren't able to race any Pro Series race. That was going to be interesting, kind of like an in-between things, which I thought was probably a good idea to do. So we're just going to have to assess once we have a full season again, hopefully next year.
So at the start of each year, do you is your top priority under 23 races, and then whatever else happens is kind of just a bonus? Or is it that you used to have goals for the Tour of California, the Tour of Gilead, and because like looking at your Liège-Bastogne-Liège record under 23, you won the last 3 out of 4 editions, so it seems like there's certain races that you really just destroy.
Yeah, I mean, we built the season really, and that's being from the get-go. Like, we don't race a whole lot. Our race calendar is not that big. I am from the opinion that the rider, especially a modern rider, has to be able to train himself into shape and to be ready to race, and to be fresh mentally to race. So I always say, if you come and race with us, you got to be race ready. So we're not going to go to any races and say, oh, that's just a training race, we need to get into it, we're going to get better as we come. No, we go there because we have to be ready. We have enough riders that are flexible enough to be able to jump in if one guy is a little tired or injured. So there's a way of working around that. It's a lot of pressure, but at the same time, I think it's a lot of motivation also. I think riders that come to the team, they must feel a little bit pressure because of the alumni that were part of it, and the history behind it. But at the same time, I think it should be, and I think it is, a huge motivator also to be part of the team and to defend the same color as Taylor Phinney, Dombrowski, all those names, Paulus, all those names that are in the World Tour right now, and everybody knows that they came from us.
What's the selection process for your team?
It evolves quite a bit since the original years, obviously, and now, because cycling has evolved a lot, and lots of things change. I mean, the first few years for us, I mean, for me, it was about just to try to get the riders on the team. It was not necessarily try to get them on, but persuade them it was the best program for them out there. Especially Europeans, there's so many options in Europe, so many development teams in Europe. Our approach was a little bit more laid back and a little bit different than everybody else. So just to be able to persuade them to come onto the program was a little bit more challenging. But I think once we established that, and we had riders like Dowsett that came to us right away, Sam Bewley, Jesse Sargent, um, and Jasper Stubb, and once those guys kind of start coming, then all those other guys that looked up to those guys, like, oh wow, that's where they came from, and they worked, and it was really beneficial for them, and it was something that was positive experience for them moving on, because I mean, cycling is becoming more and more international, and it's also becoming more professionalized even at a younger age. I mean, now juniors, I wouldn't say most juniors, but a lot of juniors have agents already. So I get contacted by agents that are offering riders, and but at the same time, those are all good. There's agents that you kind of work with, and you get to know quite well, and you actually become friends with, and you respect and trust. And at the same time, it's always good to rely on your alumni that maybe know the guy or know somebody that knows the guys, and then just like the hearsay about that rider, he's a good personality, he's going to fit the mold. I work quite a bit on that subject, and then sometimes you got some alumni that just tell me, hey, that kid should keep an eye on it. I think that's going to be a great rider in the future. Just following around and just like, it's a lot of paying attention to what's going on there, at the same time just kind of researching the personality behind the rider also.
Like, how did this team come about? Because it started as Trek Livestrong. Like, how did that team just start, kind of thing?
Yeah. So when Lance decided to make a comeback, he wanted to, alongside of it, bring a development team based and built around Taylor Finney back in the day, because Taylor was in 2009 was the big American hope. He was the big rider that's going to come up and take on the world, I would say. And he wanted to have Trek support him, so he could start from there and go through the years, so he would become an athlete for the future in the US. And then after a couple of years, the stories were quite successful, and instead of basing it around just one rider, I mean, my idea was always like, one rider is great, but if you put all your eggs in the same basket, it's always more difficult. And I come from a football background, so you can never win a game on your own. Yes, you have a great striker, but you can never win the game on your own. So it's always easier if you have like 3, 4, 5, 6, or even 12 riders that are really good. And then the strength of the team is actually the overall level of the team, and the mentality and the spirit in the race. So if you ride for each other, you're twice as strong as you would be if you would be an individual trying to win the race, I think.
So as team owner and sports director, what moments have kind of stuck out for you, like since the team's inception? I'm thinking like Joe Dombrowski winning in the Baby Giro, or your riders taking national championship titles in the senior ranks.
It's hard to put 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 results of the team forward. Yeah, all those races that you mentioned are great memories. Taylor winning Paris-Roubaix U23 2 years in a row was amazing. It was great to see. That was one of the start. Like there's so many national titles that we won on the pro level with Ben King, with it's Greg Daniel won also. So it's those stories is so much fun. Johnny Brown won nationals. It's like, but I think what I'm the most proud of is that, I don't know all the riders, because I don't talk to all the riders that went through the program. I think we've surpassed 100 riders that went through the program for now. So I don't really keep in touch with 100 plus riders, but most of the people that I talk to and I hear back from or I run into is that no matter whether they made it to the world tour or not, whether they stay in cycling or not, is that they look back on this experience on this team as a positive development in their life, whether it's work ethic, whether it's relationship that they've built over the years with some friends they have. They look back as one of the best periods of their lives and the most fun they had, because we're here to do a job, but at the same time we're here to have fun also. And I'm not saying that we all just run around and be goofs, and because we are pretty professional, but I think the mentality is pretty laid back and at the same time professional. So it's the right balance, and that value looking back when they came back to me and they come back to me and they say, you know what, being on your team was the best period of my career, and that's great value for me.
Okay, so taking it a step towards you now instead of your team, I was just wondering, how is it growing up with your dad being the greatest cyclist of all times in form of Eddy Merckx? How was he an inspiration when you were growing up? Were you seeing like, I want to be like my dad because he's out racing every single week? Or how was that period of your life?
Yeah, so I didn't know him racing. You know, he was too young when he was racing, so I was 6 when he retired. But I mean, obviously, you know, I knew of my dad. I saw the videotapes, and you know, and first of all, it's a big pride to see his accomplishment and how impressive his palmarès is. And I always knew I was never going to be able to be the same as he was. Obviously, he had a lot of passion for cycling as an athlete and won a lot of races. Still after his career, you know, he built a bike business and he was involved in like coaching national teams and stuff like that. And he's always stuck around cycling because of me also, because, you know, once your son races, you get involved. But um, it's just basically my goal was, or it still is that, you know, he gives cycling so much and he gives such a big legacy, is that I need to respect that legacy. I need to respect the name that he has, and if I can leave something behind that I contribute to the history of the name through the years, even past his cycling and business career and cycling, if I can leave something behind as, yeah, Axel Merckx did something for cycling also. He did something very positive and he left a legacy behind that his dad started. That's something that I would be very proud of.
So you started your career with a stagiaire role in Motorola. How
Yeah.
was joining in '93 when Lance Armstrong had just become world champion as well?
Yeah, it was interesting. So one of my first encounter with Lance, actually, I was racing Tour de l'Avenir with the national team, and he was with Motorola. That's one of the first time I met him. My dad told me about him because he was sponsoring the team, and he knew how good he was, and he said that guy is going to leave a big print in cycling. And then I did stagiaire with Motorola with a lot of too much media attention. It's like I went to a race and all the photographers were around me and video, and I was just a stagiaire. Can you imagine it? Like I was 20 years old and all the cameras are around you. It was pretty overwhelming, and I was actually embarrassed, and I didn't think it was fair for some other kids that were stagiaire also and didn't get any attention. But at the end of the day, it wasn't my fault. So I think I made the best out of it in the situation. And then once all that went by, I mean, I didn't sign with Motorola the first year. I went to Telecom for the first year. Once that first year went by, I wouldn't say you get used to it, but you get over the fact that, and the people get over the fact also that, you know, you're not just the son of Eddy Merckx. At some point you become Axel and you try to do the best. And I've always tried to stay as positive as I could, you know, because everywhere I went, like, well, 30 years ago, your dad won here. I said, well, yeah, he won everywhere, so it's not complicated, you know. But I mean, I really enjoy my racing. I had fun racing. I met some amazing people. I built some great relationships through cycling, and I just had a lot of fun doing it. I mean, it's a lot of pressure, but at the same time, you know, it's a big pride to carry that name. It's a big responsibility also, because, you know, I didn't want to damage the name. I didn't want to be you know, like doing something stupid so the name would like look like shit at the same time. So again, it's kind of like the same answer as before. It's kind of like being part of that legacy and leave something behind that was positive.
So in '96, you kind of had a string of very good results. You came fourth in the World Championships. You were third in Lombardia.
Yeah.
Like, was it just that you kind of you settled in as a pro and now you're starting to achieve results?
Yeah, so for 94 was a big struggle for me. Then I came around at the end of the season, and 95 I had a decent season, and I did my first Grand Tour in the Vuelta at the end of 95. But after the Vuelta, it was my first Grand Tour, and I was absolutely destroyed. So I didn't go to Worlds because I was too tired. And then the third year, I became stronger, even stronger. And I did my second Vuelta, which I came out very well out with a great fitness, and it was great. I mean, I was on a high, and I did great. I did great world championships, and I just met my wife at that point. It was one of those moments where everything was going right, and I was very positive. I was very happy. I had great fitness, and I mean, Worlds and Lombardy were 1 week apart, so it was the fitness of Worlds of the Vuelta was still at Worlds, and then the Worlds was still the Lombardy, and it was a great week of my life for sure.
Kind of. And were you more seeing yourself as like a punchier kind of rider with like a one day in the form of Philippe Gilbert nowadays? So more a classics rider, because you did really well in Liège, Bastogne Liège as well, which is notoriously hilly as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to compare me to Philippe Gilbert because he's 100 times better than I was, and his power speaks for itself. And I'm not punchy because I was not very explosive. I was more of a rider that could handle big loads and lots of long and hard races. I mean, Grand Tours also. I did some pretty good Grand Tours over the years. Won a stage in the Giro, So, but the longer the race was, the better it was for me. I was not good at all when it was a short stage and very explosive. That was not who I was. I was a typical diesel. Exactly the best way I can describe myself is diesel. And then when everybody's falling apart after 250 Ks, sometimes I was still at the same level that I was after 50 Ks. So that was my big strength. And but I didn't win a lot of races, but whatever I did, I'm pretty proud of, and I had a lot of fun doing it too.
And then 98 Tour de France, you did really well. You came top 10. What was that whole tour like for you, and what was it like racing Pantani as well?
Well, 98 was a bit of a weird, as you know, Tour de France. I finished top 10th when you really look straight forward, and when you look at the result, I mean, all the Spanish team left. The Officina team was not there anymore. If you add all those guys and a Spanish rider, I probably should have end up where I always end up, between like 18, 19, and 25th position. That year I was 10th because everybody just went home. And racing Pantani, it's like, it was a lot of fun. He was very shy. He was not very talkative. But one of my biggest memory and the most impressed I've been as an athlete is racing with Indurain. One of my first seasons was his last seasons, and once Indurain was in the peloton, it was you could tell he was there. He was not a big talker, but he just had that aura on him and that presence that was just like taking over the whole peloton, and you just have naturally so much respect for him that left a big impact on me when I met him.
You were also part of the first few years of what is now Deceuninck Quickstep. What was the first few days of Mapei Quickstep?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I had a lot of fun. I mean, I had a lot of fun. It was the first time in my cycling career that I end up in a little bit more of a Belgian base, because Mapei had a lot of Italians, but they had like the core Belgians in there with Stales, Musée, Peters, Leisen. We had a lot of fun, but we worked very hard, and that was a very tight group. And when I see the results of the Deceuninck Quickstep and Quickstep before that, and all those, I'm not surprised how tight those guys are, because that's the foundation that was established back in those days. And Patrick Lefevre has done an amazing job with his teams, and I'm not comparing myself to him, because I think nobody can compare itself with the results that he had. But I think a lot of part of the team that I run right now is based on that relationship and that spirit of a race. You win together, but you lose together also. And if you have a bad race, doesn't mean you have a bad year. So you got to be able to bounce back and put yourself in question, but at the same time have a team where, when you have a guy that has a successful race, it shouldn't become a burden for the team. It should become motivation for everybody else, and not that it puts pressure on the colleagues. It's just more like, well, if he can't do it, I can do it also. If we can do this together, he can give it back to me at some point in my career or in my year. And that's the big foundation that I learned from those days.
When you look back at your career, what was your proudest moment? Was it winning the bronze in 2004? Was that
Yeah, I mean,
the moment?
that's probably the one that gave me the most international recognition. That and the stage in the Giro. But personally, on the pure athletic side of things, I won a stage in Dauphiné and in 2005, and I mean, I was by myself 105 Ks, and I think I won with over 2.5 minutes on the second. You know, it's one of those days that I was got very mad that day, and a lot of people got me mad, and I just rode out of frustration. Rode so hard that I could barely bend over anymore at the end of the day, but that didn't matter because I won the stage. But it was one of those epic ride that I didn't have a lot of in my career, but it's probably one of the most proud one that I accomplished in my career.
How does your training that you did when you were pro compare to the training that you put your riders through? Kind of, is there more like load management now, or sports science has advanced so much? But like, what is the kind of differences from you racing in the 90s and the early 2000s to what kind of, is it more training or less training or more specific training?
I think it's just it comes down to more or less the same because I think to me a training is very individual. Some guys need a lot of mileage, some guys don't. It's actually not good for them. I think it's most important to know what's right for you and what's not right for you. It's just like back then, even way more than before, and because there was also not the same amount of technology, nobody knew what everybody was doing. Now everybody knows what everybody's doing. You know, everybody's on Strava and posting, and which is good but bad at the same time, because you know you have a young rider, 18-year-old that looks at what Geraint Thomas or Chris Froome is doing, and they're like, oh, if I want to be as good as them, I got to train as hard. Well, no, it took them a while to get there, and that's what you have to understand. So you know, Rome wasn't built in one day. But it's the same with a professional athlete. So I think what's evolved also is that there's a little more research into nutrition. You know, like most of the riders also now have a nutrition advice, and also the supplements, the drinks, the supplements and the bars. You know, the honey stingers, the clean, and all those products that you can have that actually support an athlete are way more advanced than they were when I was racing. You know, like it's just like I remember you talking about the '98 Tour de France. I had a friend from California that visited me, and he had big shakes from back in the days. I think it was Cytomax, you know, '98. It came from the triathlon, and because my wife was doing some triathlon, so I was drinking that through the race because I thought it was really good and gave me lots of energy. And nobody has heard of that. You don't do that, you know, especially in talent team. Like you gotta have your tea or you have your water, or that's. But I think everything has evolved so much right now, and so much science, and you can see the trend also with the big team, you know, with Ineos, how more advanced they are, more research they are, how specifically they look at nutrition and how much dehydration every rider has. I mean, it's gone so far above and beyond that's the tools that a rider has. He's got way more information also to find out if he's getting overtrained or not, which we didn't have. It was more a feeling. Yeah, you kind of had to start already a little bit, you know, when you saw your watts going down and your heart rate was low, it's like, oh, that's not a good sign. But it was just the beginning of that era and that science that just came about, and just right now it's just like way beyond. I mean, right now you can get up in the morning, put a heart rate monitor, and it will tell you if you're tired or not. This is something that you just, you know, like back. I remember when I started racing, my granddad, which was you know, like on my mom's side, it was a cyclist too. He's like, oh, you should take your blood pressure and then your heart rate every morning. That's you'll find out are you tired or not. You know, that's what I'm saying. Like that's the big gap between before and now. But I think it's also very positive for the athlete, and that's why, you know, athletes are way more efficient they are now than they were back then.
that kind of neatly wraps up this interview. Thanks very much for your time, Axel. It's been a very enjoyable interview. And,
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
That's it for this interview with Axel Merckx. If you're new to the channel, why not check out some of our other lockdown interviews and subscribe if you want to stay up to date with the up and coming videos. And as always, thank you for watching and see you next time.